We're on. We are live. Cool. Hello. Hello.
Yay! Wave from Archie.
What a legend. What are we talking about today, Dom?
I think it might be a good idea to have a chat about something that seems to be quite relevant at the moment, and that is the discussion that's become quite heated about breed-specific legislation, in particular Staffy breeds, which come to the fore of media since last week. So I think it might be a good idea to have a chat about that.
Yeah, a bit topical. Obviously, after that incident with the really tragic one with the baby dying, there's been a lot of conversations around breed. So yeah, we'll just like we said earlier, we'll just add to that and like throw our weight in. Why not? Yeah, but I mean, for context, the arguments out there are: should we be allowed to own specific breeds, in this case Staffies, in Australia, which is the topic that's up for conversation with so many. So yeah, what's your point of view on it? We'll go there.
Look, I have a large dog, so obviously having a larger dog brings with it a lot more responsibilities when it comes to incidents, whether it's an incident with a human or whether it's an incident with the dog. Like, he has bigger teeth. He is a bigger, stronger dog. So the potential of him doing damage, he could potentially kill me. He could potentially kill a child. But he's dribbling out.
Yeah, the potential to cause harm for doing exactly the same behaviour as a small dog in comparison is higher than the small dog. That's just the reality of owning and having a larger breed and powerful breed in your life. And that's something that when you bring one of them in, you've got to accept and is a part of that, and then be responsible according to that.
Well, it's like with anything. Someone who rides a scooter, are they at a more likelihood of injury to someone who's driving a, I don't know, motorbikes, 500cc Ducati down Anzac Parade? Are they more likely to do themselves damage? Yes, someone on a scooter could hurt themselves, and if they fell off the scooter under a car, yes, they could be killed. But someone falling off a very high-powered motorcycle will do themselves more damage. So it's knowing what you have and taking responsibility for that. So, with the very unfortunate and tragic incident that happened with that child, that one, we don't know what happened. So, we can't just say it's because it was a Staffy. You just can't, because it could be any breed of dog. The parent could have rolled over and suffocated the child. Like, the possibility is always there. We drive in weapons every day. Do we use them to kill people? No. Is the potential? Yeah. There, yes. It's being self-aware, but also aware and responsible of what you have, and knowing, okay, yes, this animal is a potential weapon. Yes, he's got really big teeth. Could he kill someone? Yes. Will I do my best to prevent that? Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think me and you we can say that we are pretty much, I can say for myself, I don't think breeds like that should be, particularly Staffies. I don't think Staffies should be banned as a breed from this country. They've not, the genetic lines these days they're being bred for pet dogs, they are companion animals, and like you said, like as soon as you bring one into your life, you've got to take responsibility for the potential to cause harm, not just to people, but to everything else. But it's a bit of a, yeah, I don't, what are the arguments for breed legislation? So what arguments are there for people saying that these breeds shouldn't be allowed?
I think the standard argument has just been the potential of these dogs to kill. From an argument that has been stated in the media this week, that the potential that they have to kill and the likelihood is much higher because of their genetic predisposition. Now, I did some research last night just to find out how many people have been killed in this country by dogs. And from what I could find, it's really hard to find the information. But what I could find was 8 people have been killed since 2018, and that's including that little baby last week. Were they all of Staffy breeds? Majority of them were, but the situations were varying. So there was a couple of situations where there was multiple dogs. Where a gentleman unfortunately had an epileptic fit, and I think the dog obviously freaked out. So it's really having a look at the context in which the bite or attack happened. But then I also had a look at how many children are killed by their parents in a year. And there's 25 children killed by their parents in a year. There are 7 children killed on average every year by their parents running them over with their car. But we're not stopping people from having children, nor are we stopping people from driving cars. So, if we're looking at why should we ban these particular breeds, and do we have a justification for it? I don't think we do. Do we have to be careful to give them to? Yes.
Yeah, like the amount of amount of dogs in our community for that small amount of deaths doesn't warrant anybody banning anything. I mean, to be clear, like one of the bigger articles out there this week was just categorically like wrong and stating just incorrect information about how some breeds are pretty much described as waiting for an opportunity to kill, which is just a load of shit. And that's just fear mongering. And unfortunately, there's been some really poor opinion pieces out there. You can't really call them articles; they're just opinion pieces. But
it's more. It's not giving anybody any information. So we've had an incident which is horrific and tragic, and I feel terrible for the parents. But they've taken that little Polaroid and run to the hills with it and creating this scaremongering about a particular breed. And a lot of the conversation is based around what this particular person has been saying, American Staffordshires. So Americans, not just Staffies. Now, there are hundreds of them. Hundreds of them. I've got heaps of clients. Staffies.
Aren't they the 2nd or 3rd most commonly owned breed, or 4th? So they're in the top 10 of most commonly owned breeds in the country. And so even if we are looking at bite stats, that number, if you only look at volume of the amount of bite stats, is going to be proportionate to the amount of breeds of the amount of those types of dog that are actually in people's homes. So typically, we are seeing dogs that are owned more have higher bite stats. So Kelpies and Australian dogs that are really part of our furniture have higher bite stats. Now, is that because? Yeah, exactly. Now, is that because the breeds are the problem, or is it because we've just got more of them? And dogs in general are prone to bite when they're under stress and when their behaviour dictates the need to do so. So,
but it's that wasn't really covered though. It was just this breed of dog did this, so we have to get rid of it. Not
all of them.
All of them. Because apparently, as you said, they're just sitting there waiting to attack and kill someone.
Yeah, regardless of the outcome, whether it's when the dog attacks, whether it actually misses, no harm's done, minor harm's done, or the worst case scenario, somebody dies, behavior doesn't happen for no reason. And the context is going to be completely situational. There's going to be so many things that happen in the moment. There's going to be so many things that led to that in the build-up that will factor in as to why that incident happened in the first place. The argument that it is just the genetics making it unavoidable that these incidents are happening is shit. You know, it's not just the genetics, and it's not just how you raise them. It's not as black and white as that. You've got so many other factors, and they're playing a part all the time. And yeah,
it's telling the end of the story without telling the story. So, you know, if we just look at it and go, okay, and this happens a lot. Like if you think about different, I had a message from a client saying, my dog was barking, I had a complaint. Now, my question is, when?
Yeah.
Where was the dog? What was in the environment? How long was the dog barking for? There is a multitude of questions that need to be asked before we can take that little Polaroid and come to this, you know, massive conclusion. It has to be, so, okay. Have you ever been bitten by a dog?
Yeah. Every single one of them was my mistake. One of them, two of them were sleep startled. The dog was asleep, and I woke it up, and it snapped when it was asleep. One of them, I didn't know it was there. It was genuinely hiding underneath a chair with a throw over it, and I went to pick up a bone, and it rushed out and smashed my hand. And then two were redirection. So where the dog was barking and lunging over there, and it turned and redirected onto my knee. And the one that was really my fault was we were playing a game where I had the ball, asked him to sit, got him to, and then I would throw it. And this was 10 years ago. And my naivety was in that I didn't pick that this dog was getting frustrated with the game. And I asked him to sit, and he didn't. So I just repeated until he got frustrated enough to jump up and bite me on the armpit. And he was a 60-kilo Rottweiler. That was a good bite. That one I learned a hell of a lot about frustration levels. And that was a massive handling error. Like, that wasn't the dog's fault.
But do you see how there was a lot of words before you said he bit my armpit?
Yeah.
So that whole story led up to why the bite happened, not just Rottweiler bit man's armpit.
Yeah.
Because if you looked at that, you looked at those words, Rottweiler. So we already have a label that we've put on dogs like Rottweilers and German Shepherds and Staffy breeds. We go aggressive, potential to be aggressive, guarding breeds, you know, protective, whatever. So that then already puts in our mind an idea. We're already creating a story before we hear the story. Rottweiler bites. Well, of course the Rottweiler bites. So here's the story that we're already creating again. Where he bites is really irrelevant. You know, Rottweiler bites man on armpit. You know, some people might go, oh my God, the dog was jumping to attack him.
Yeah.
So it's
when we're assessing like this sort of behavior from a client side of things, like when we're trying to address it, and they'll tell us, okay, the dog's aggressive. We'll go, okay, in what context, and all the things that you talk about, like what do we identify around it? And something we ask is it appropriate? And by that, I don't mean to us, I mean to the dog. And if the dog is pressured to the point where it feels like it's a bite, then the dog is doing what it felt like it needed to do, and it's not the dog's problem, really. The problem is that it was there. And that's a management and handling issue, error. And something else we ask is it proportional? Because if the dog bites and goes, bang, leave me alone, and backs away, again, like, he's doing everything he can to actually go, mate, I just need some fucking space. But if he was to lose his shit and then go to town, then that's not proportional to the context. Well, it's less likely to be proportional. It depends, again, on the context and the surrounding context around what's actually happening, because he's going to escalate to the point that he feels he needs to.
Well, yeah, they do what they feel they need to at the time.
Yeah.
So, and again, like, there was a story to that. You know, if you've got, and I do the same thing when people says, oh, the dog is aggressive, explain that to me. What does that look like? So explain what's the situation, what is the actual dog's behavior, and what is the outcome. So if someone says to me, my dog is aggressive, okay, did they bite? Say it's aggressive, displaying aggressive behavior towards a person. Did they bite the person? Did they contact? No. So what did they do? They lunged and air snapped. Okay, did they continue to air snap, or was it just one air snap and then they moved away? Because again, that gives that information to us to go, okay, well, the dog did what it could and it kept itself safe, as well as making a decision to not contact. So its want for conflict wasn't really there. So it was keeping itself safe by using defensive displays of behavior to keep itself safe and get whatever it was away from them, the human.
All right. Sorry, my just froze there for a second. But yeah.
Hi.
Hello again. Yeah, absolutely. And good. Last week he just chilled out.
He did. Now he's not. He's just staring.
This is true of every single behavior we analyze, not just aggression and behaviors. When we're asked to step in and address an undesirable behavior that the client's identified, one of the first things, the first thing we'll do is get context as to why that behavior is happening in the first place. Because I think, again, like, common misconceptions are out there, unfortunately, like, not enough owner education on what causes behavior. You know, the outdated information on the dog's psychology. You know, the dogs, we know that they're not spiteful and stubborn and vindictive, and yet people are sometimes labeling dogs as if they're a Bond villain, and it really isn't like that. They're not. And if your dog is, I mean, prey drive is a genuine thing, and prey drive is something that isn't that common.
No.
But it sometimes does pop its ugly head. But we normally know well about that well in advance of a really serious incident. And again, even prey drive, like, while there's a big genetic factor on that, we've still got the other factors that affect that dog's behavior, which are the environment and its previous learning. And they've got to be taken into consideration when we're assessing behavior.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, you know, with prey drive, it is a commonly used label that people say, you know, oh, my dog's got really high prey drive. If your dog's got really high prey drive, it will run down, grab and kill, dissect, possibly eat what they have in their sights or what they're stalking. That's true prey drive. So it's again, as you said, it's educating people and knowing, so they know what they're looking at. Because even with aggression, when people use the word aggression, it is just labeling. Like, if you walked into my home and I slapped you in the face, you'd be like, what the fuck? I thought we were friends, man. Like, why would you do that?
If I walked into your house during lockdown, you'd have every right to.
This is very true. But if you went, okay, well, I know you, so it wasn't a hard slap, so I'm just going to assess that. But if I didn't know you, and I do this with
Mm.
clients, if I walked into a client's house and the first thing I do to them is walk up and slap someone in the face, they're instantly going to judge me, understandably, and never
Yeah,
ever hire me again.
yeah.
Because I've displayed something. They don't know me. They don't know my history. I might have had, a twitch, or thought there was a mosquito on the side of their head, but they
Yeah,
instantly will go, she's crazy.
yeah, and yeah, and there'll be so many other factors other than what happened. There's all those factors again. They always come into it. It's the immediacy, the history, the previous, like the relationship between the individuals. And while there's just to bring it back around to that really sad topic, like it is tragic, but there are so many unknowns around that one. What did it happen? Was it 2 a.m.?
Yeah, for me was the baby and the dog in the bed. Was
Yeah,
the baby being fed on the couch next to the dog. There are hundreds of different possibilities that could have happened, because for a dog to attack a baby at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's, for me, that just opens, how many questions. Why would the
yeah,
dog and the baby so close that the dog could actually get the baby at 2 o'clock in the morning? I understand with newborn babies, they cry and they don't have a 9 to 5 clock. But again,
if there was, I mean, I work really closely with Mel from Cooper and Kids, and we're always talking about and teaching people about the importance of baby and dog safety, and having in those measures of just don't give your dog unsupervised access, and supervision includes when you're asleep. Um, so,
well, there's different levels of supervision.
yeah,
It's people don't, and I've worked with a few people who have addressed an issue after they've had the baby. So and this is where some people, I think, because they've had the dog for years and they're like, oh, the dog is fine, with my friend's child that they might see once in a blue moon, but it's always monitored and careful because it's somebody else's child. So they just make an assumption that, that sudden change, because this dog apparently is 7, that sudden change, the dog's going to be, it'll be fine.
yeah,
So there was no, again, there mightn't have been any preparation, but as I said, I've been to homes where there wasn't any preparation, and a baby's come into the mix, which changes everybody's lives. I mean, I don't have kids, so I cannot explain how difficult it is. Those to you that have kids, go you. But I can only imagine that life change just for the humans, let alone the dog. And
yeah.
the dog doesn't understand that that's what happens when a new baby comes into the situation.
Well, it's a massive period in the dog's life of going through months of change, not just from when the baby comes in, but from the moment there's pregnancy. Everything changes hormonally in terms of habits and daily routines, and start changing potentially where the dog
Now,
rests and sleep and where they're allowed. And the one person in their life that's the most constant and familiar, all of a sudden
you just smell every day.
is unpredictable. So
Mm.
they've got to know them over, say, it's 6 years or whatever, and everything about them, like, was a sense of comfort. Like, familiarity brings comfort, and all of a sudden, by being completely different, we are bringing in a mentality of, well, the one thing I thought in life I knew is no longer what I know, and so it brings in uncertainty. And then to add in a new being in the mix, and like
New routine.
Yeah, we can't predict. We can't take it for granted that just because a baby isn't a threat to the dog, that the dog was going to perceive it that way. It's an unknown in the dog's life, and that's why we ask for baby gates and like distance
Separate room.
for that sort of thing. Because we just
Teach your
don't.
dog to
yeah, so many things. Like we were working with one in the week, baby arriving at 13 weeks, and what we're already just breaking things down for them to, so the dog can learn, like, go to bed, but we're already teaching them in different contexts. So for example, the dog does understand go to bed, but in one context. So we're starting to get the parents to do it in other ones, like holding, this is a tip I got off Mel from Cooper and Kids again, like get a pillowcase full of yes, no, not a fake baby. So the eyes on fake babies seem to freak dogs out. Get a pillowcase with 6 water bottles, and that flops around really hard to manage. And because your body's all constricted, we're saying, like, go to bed, and we're getting people to actually get the dog really used to doing it in as many different contexts as possible.
Yeah.
Another one that I really like is teaching the dog, not necessarily on a verbal cue, but like on a to pick up on the patterns of movement. So as the human drops down and sits on the sofa, that dropping action becomes the cue for the dog to go to bed, so that they're not up in the space with the parents while they're actually got the slowest reaction time to be able to get up and create space if they need to.
Yeah, I do the same thing. So using environmental cues that like the mother sitting down to feed, or going, what's another one? So teaching the dog to go to a bed, but putting that bed or that station outside of the baby's room with the baby gate. But every time the parent goes into the baby's room, that dog puts itself at station, and it just stays there. And again, there's no cues necessary, because no verbal cues. My apologies. There are environmental cues and then that creates predictability for the dog, because if there are movements that are made and you've pre-trained them with those different or props, with the water, I'll have to use that one. That's a brilliant one. I didn't even think about the eyes. Then the dog knows what to do, which means which helps it adjust as best it can to the other change.
We go back, exactly that. Like if we circle back down round to the dog is experiencing change in its life, what it's going to do in turn is start to anticipate new patterns. So trying to make sense of it all. And so when we're prepping for the dog, what we want to do, this has turned into a how to prep your dog for babies talk.
Why not? People are still having them.
But we start to then go, right, okay, the routine is changing, and that's something sometimes parents have to acknowledge, or parents to be have to acknowledge. But then we go, right, what is this going to look like? Like, where is he going to sleep? Where do I need him when I sit down? Is he allowed to be under my feet when I'm cooking? Is that appropriate? Is he a jumper? Can he clear gates? All these questions need to be asked months before, to give the dog the best opportunity to practice. And again, to keep it topical for what we're really talking about at the start, it doesn't matter what breed it is.
No.
No, it really doesn't. Like whether that's a Staffy or whether that's, a little cavoodle, you get that dog feeling comfortable with the changes in its life, and you decrease and put the safety precautions in place. You decrease the chance of any accidents happening, and that's not just with babies. That's dog ownership in general. It's how to prevent unwanted behaviours 101 right there.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's with anything, make sure. No, again, going back to know what you have in front of you. Know your dog. Know your dog, and know how even the conversation that we had last week. Know your dog and the situation that you're putting your dog in. Is your dog suitable for that situation? Is this a situation that your dog wants to be in? And if it isn't, does it have the coping mechanisms to do so?
I think a really serious question that needs to be asked as well is, like, is this a situation that the dog is okay in, or is it just a situation that I want it to be okay in? I think a lot of people no. That's a different. I know it's a different question, but
another conversation.
That's the question. Like, I just want to highlight that though. That is the question they need to ask. Like, am I asking my dog to do this because I want him to be there, or am I actually looking at this objectively? Because if you get an outside opinion, they're not going to look at this with an emotional attachment. They're going to look at it and go, right, your dog is super stressed out here, regardless of what you want him to feel. That's what he's going through right now.
Yeah, well, you know,
and that,
feelings and emotions are independent. You can't make someone change how they feel instantly. You know,
yeah,
so if you have a dog and you look at the dog, and for me, one of the biggest ones is seeing dogs in cafes. And, you know, people that I've seen, they're like, I want my dog to go to a cafe. I'd love to take Arch to a cafe. No, he'd hate it. Plus,
yeah,
he'd eat everybody's food out of everybody's table. No matter how well trained
yeah,
he is, he'd love food. And that situation would cause him massive frustration. And I don't think that's fair. So I don't take him. But it is looking at the dog's need to the human want. And where does that balance out?
exactly. Right, we're half hour in, so we're going to wrap that up. But but in summary, breed legislation for me shouldn't be a thing. We should be looking at far more context and detail of the individual situations that happen. And unfortunately, these really sad instances, well, as long as we've got dogs in our life, they have got a potential to happen, but the numbers are showing that it's not breeds, and it's not that often. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
It's yeah, I'm with you. It's not breeds. Yeah, it's not breeds. It's education. It's education on humans. We bring these dogs into our homes, not by their choice. They don't come knocking on our door saying, "Can I live here?" We bring them by our own decision into our homes with this assumption that they are going to acclimate and do everything that we want them to do without taking any consideration of what they need on their day-to-day. So as you said, it doesn't matter if it's a Chihuahua or a Staffy or a Rottweiler. Yes, they do have a larger potential to do much more damage because of their size, but that's on the responsibility of the person choosing that particular breed. I think.
Yep, me too. All right, that was great. we as always could talk forever. We'll wrap it up there. But thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I'll see you next week, mate.